Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Rocket Monday, we're going to talk about the current hot topic, that is NASA's budget cut of 2025. So let's dive deep into it. So before we understand the budget cut, we have to understand certain history, certain context of it, because the idea of NASA was planted one day after basically 4 October 1957, basically the launch of Sputnik 1. So NASA was established in 1958. You're like, wait a minute, I said one day after. That time people were thinking that they can keep enhancing this puppy. That was NACA, National Administration Community for Aeronautics. So they originally thought that they can expand this puppy, and then they're like, yeah, we might as well have to retool everything. So tada. So basically, NACA is the daddy of NASA. So NASA is the baby. So NASA came into be, and flat out this started during Cold War. You have to understand certain aspect of it. When war happens, money becomes no object. Somehow, even a poorest country can just pour money like there is no tomorrow the moment war starts. And Cold War was a war. It's not something that you can just like, who cares? No, no, no. People were pouring serious money. And that made bank balance blank, meaning you want to buy. How much? I do not need to care. Like, I need this. How much it will cost does not matter. I need this. The end. Blank check, go. So they poured money like there is no tomorrow. Basically, there was a deadline, and assassination of a president sets a fire under people's ass, and things went like they went. And the amount of money they poured in was so high that it peaked at 4.5% of US federal budget. That percentage is bonkersly high. That's not little bit high. That's bonkersly unsustainably high. But again, this is Cold War. Money is no object. Go YOLO. So this is how it started. So basically, NACA took some new love of space and became NASA. And NASA started in a very rich and fertile way where they had a deadline and free blank checks. So they went YOLO. Now, after that, it was all decline. Basically, if you look into the percentage of share, so to say, share of the US federal budget, it constantly goes down. So this idea of like, oh, Trump is cutting, is like, bro, everybody has been cutting and it has to be cut. I'll explain that further. Because you have to understand, the moment moon landing happened, people lost interest. So never ever let any old people tell you it's like, oh, you guys lose interest. They lost interest in freaking moon landing. So that actually happened. People lost interest. Trust me, if this did not happen, like as in Apollo 13, nobody would have even bothered with Apollo 14 or 15, so to say. So that happened. And why this was what happened to Cold War? Well, by 1970s, late 70s, USA sort of started to realize that while they had the early mover advantage, their systems were inherently flawed. So inherently, they're not going to be around for long. They kind of figured it out, especially technologically wise. And given the fact that they had brilliant engineers, brilliant scientists, and they were literally ransacking them for their political agendas, they are like, yeah, that's not an issue. So in late 1970s, they are like, yeah, do we really need it to? So people lost interest, and 1970s proved USSR is not a real threat. So basically, Apollo was unsustainable, and that war driver also disappeared. So people had to realize that we have to take a cheaper path. Basically, this line must go down. It has to go down. It cannot stay there. So cheaper path must be chosen, and you must have cuts. Basically, money has to be cut. And Richard Nixon is the biggest cutter of this, so to say. He just like chopped the hell out of it. He poofed Apollo 18, Apollo 19, and Apollo 20. And I cannot verify this because again, it's very old, is that Apollo 18 was almost fully built, as in the physical hardware, Saturn V, and Apollo 19 was almost half built, something like that. So hardware was already there. So they're like, poof. So flat out, trust me, people were getting bored as quickly as that time also, same as this. So Richard Nixon just did the biggest cut. And then in recent time, everybody cut after that, like cut. There was a little bit of jerk up in 1990s. You have to understand, they had to put some money for ISS. Otherwise, all the people who were in USSR rocket industry might be absorbed by places that USA do not want the technology for ICBMs. So a bit of money injection was done, and then it's flattered off. So Obama, in recent time, he just slap. So he cancels Constellation project. You have to understand, Constellation was what we call bastard child of Space Shuttle. Space Shuttle was a bad project, and instead of just like, okay, done, this was a bad design, we tried it, it did not work, let's just cut it, let's just go. They're like, no, senators were like, no, we want our jobs and jobs and more jobs. Does not matter whether it bankrupts the country. We want jobs. So took that bastard parts and made it into Constellation Project. Now, Constellation Project was inherently simple idea. The idea was you have this solid booster, which is brutally overpowered. Might as well use that for solid stage. Like just first stage is the solid stage. You do not do anything other than just take it, go. So that was a very clever idea. And the liquid tank, that was another most expensive part. Like that was for heavier system. So that was Constellation. And you would think that given the fact the design is so simple, and they did launch, like they actually launched that solid booster part with a dummy payload, it would have been easy. No, they just started to drink money like there is no tomorrow. And that time, this was the worst time in NASA. Simply point, there was no trajectory. It's like, what do you want to go? Like, what do you want to do? I'm not even joking. There was a talks and design decisions for asteroid redirect, meaning there's gonna launch astronauts to asteroids, and asteroids gonna be either brought next to low Earth orbit or do something like that. There are animation made by NASA for that during that time. So you can still find some remnants of it. So that was Constellation Project. And Obama was like, yeah, this is not gonna fly. This was just so over budget, so behind schedule, so stupendously pointless that they're like, yep, they chopped it. Now, again, people did try to chop Space Shuttle. It became Constellation. They tried to chop Constellation. Constellation became SLS. So it's almost like an undead child at this point in time. So what Obama tried, Trump also wants us to do it again. Now, be mindful, Trump did try to slow it down, but they could not. So there is a dip, but not that big of a dip. And this time he's like coming for vengeance. So this time he has missiles, 4 missiles fired. So one is SLS. He's gonna nuke SLS, which has to be done. SLS has to be let go. For sake of few jobs, you cannot burn entire space agency. So you have to let that go. That has to go away. Another, Orion capsule. Orion capsule is so weirdly built because this was not designed for lunar mission. It was designed for some weird hybrid mission where they're gonna go and asteroid redirect and all that. That's why its heat shield was not overbuilt like Apollo. So yeah, that has to go. Lunar Gateway, I have no idea how the heck rocket scientists even agreed to that, but it has to go. Nancy Gracie telescope, that should not go because again, that's a very good use of spy satellite. For those of you who do not know that Hubble is just a turbocharged spy satellite. They just took it and go, tweet. Nothing more than was done to it. Yeah, they changed some electronics and they showed pictures of it, but it was just National Reconnaissance satellite, spy satellite. And they had few spare parts lying. Same way Apollo was spared, there were certain spare parts of it. And one of them had primary meter done. Like they're done. They're like, okay, yeah, we have better satellites now. We don't need these things. So somebody was like, hey, it's fully built. We learned a lot from Hubble. Why not we just upgrade that puppy with modern systems and have a Hubble 2.0? So that is a Nancy Gracie telescope. And to give you a context how upgraded that puppy is, Hubble color photo sensor is this size. Nancy Grace is this big. It's like ginormous. Basically, it's ultra wide field of view. So there, Hubble is more like a sniper scope, and Nancy Grace is similar to that in terms of field of view, but it has wide. It's like I see it all. So I do not think he wants to cancel it. It's more of like he fires force missile. So when Congress has to cancel it, they have to negotiate. Again, president does have some power. So there has to be back and forth negotiation. So it's like, yeah, you can save this Nancy Grace telescope. Because again, most of thing is done and Hubble is about to be poofed. So this does not make logical sense from a business point of view. SLS has to be terminated. Orion has to be terminated. Lunar Gateway, I have no idea who was high on that day, but that has to be terminated. So it almost feels like an art of business deal, but let's see what happens. But again, Senate could still decide to burn the country rather than burn these projects, but let's see what happens. But again, this is a normal thing and it has to go down. Now, why everybody is so sure that it will go down and it has to go down? Well, blunders. They have made bonkers blunder, as in NASA, like it was amazing and then it was just like all downhill from there. So Apollo was their magnificent magnum opus. It was like, whoa, how the heck you did things in sort of reasonable cost. And yes, it is reasonable for given the fact that there was no technology. They invented technology and somehow did it in only 4.5% of the budget. So that was magnificent, and they did it promptly. That's why nobody talks about cost, because it's like, oh, it has to be done during this day timeline. We did it, the end, go home. So people are okay with that. Yeah, there were certain cost overrun, but it's like, okay, you have this deadline, you met the deadline, done, go home. But after that, too many bad projects happen. And again, expensive bad projects. There were some good projects like Voyagers were really good, but other than that, it's like, oof, bad project. The worst project is space shuttle, because space shuttle failed in all its deliverable, meaning space shuttle was pitched to basically public, so to say, or senate, where it's like, it's gonna give you three things. First was space, it's gonna be safe, and second, it would be cheap, third, it would be routine. Now, safe part, this has more poof count compared to Saturn 5, which is again abomination. It should not have happened, but again did happen. 14 people lost their life. So it was definitely not safe. That's why they have to poof it. Second, cheap. Yeah, it cost the same as Saturn 5 at the end of the day. So they might as well just kept using a Saturn 5, and a Saturn 5 could have easily built ISS in 6 launches, meaning 3-4 years, done, go home. This took like freaking decades to build ISS, because again, this was so slow. ISS was designed with that sort of build speed, or the target line was they're gonna launch 2 per month. 2 per month. They barely managed to do 2 per year. So it was neither safe nor cheap nor routine. So it had to end. It was one of those things where it's like, yeah, we have to end. And the reason why it was not ended sooner, especially after the second launch, they did not have any contingency or any fallback. Now, this is the time where USA lost his brain, and they're like, okay, this is a bad structure. Everything attached to this, let's just start from fresh. They're like, no, we're going to lose jobs. We're going to lose jobs. So we must keep reusing the, zombie parts. So they're like, okay, Constellation was designed in hurry. And then Constellation never worked. Then SLS was designed. Again, it also never worked. I will explain why that part also. So this was really bad. Like from a agency point of view, analysis point of view, this is bad. Then you come to SLS. Now, SLS is so over budget that it's a laughing matter at this point in time. It's like, yeah, what was the targeted price? $500 million per launch. What is right now expected optimistically? $2 billion per launch. It cannot be launched. Meaning if they'll keep launching it, it will burn the country, and then NASA had to be cut. It has to be. Like, there is no scenario, there is no reality where you can keep launching SLS. It's just not happening. That's why I said, like, it has to be cut. And then we come to this system. Now, hilariously, basically NASA tricked public, and it was like, okay, we're gonna build this. It's like, how much money you want? 500 million, which was a lot of money. This is long ago. So it's like, yeah, a lot of money. Okay, cool, awesome. And then they started the projects like, no, we effed up. So we kind of need more money for new technologies and all that. Okay, cool, awesome. How much was? That was $1 billion. How much it took to finish it? $10+ billion. Now, is it worth that much? No. Like at best, this is only worth $3 billion. It should not have costed $10 billion. And again, in astronomical circles, it's called a telescope that ate astronomy. So many smaller projects has to be poofed simply because they kept pumping money into this to keep it finished, pushed across the finish line. Be mindful, this would have been better off if they're like, okay, let's just scrap it, have 5 to 6 other projects, just have them ready. And again, launch this once they have figured out, hey, we have Starship, just launch it in one piece, rather than that heat shield was the problem. Not the telescope. Telescope is like, take it and go. Telescope was done on time. It's just that heat shield, that foil heat shield. Yeah, either come up with a new design or come up, wait for a bigger rocket, or something even better, dock, have another hard shell folding structure, and this one, and then dock it. So that was just really bad. Like, you cannot burn a 10 billion, especially when you asked for 1 billion. Like, to give you a context, even in Indian Navy had a deal with basically Russia, and Russia was like, okay, we're going to give you an aircraft carrier for $500 million. It's like, cool, awesome, here's your money, start building them. It's like, cool. They started, there is going to be a bit of cost overrun, okay, then it's ballooned to $1 billion. And then it was like, okay, it's going to go up. It went to $2 billion. And that was the last time India ever bought aircraft carrier. Now we're like, we are building our own. It's like, we can't trust you. So that's why I said, like, cost overrun a little bit, or 2x or to 3x is acceptable. The moment you start touching 10x, yeah, no, just no. And Boeing Starliner basically came too close to the boom, which again happened under NASA's watch. That should not have happened. So too many blunders, and each of these blunders have billions of dollars lost. So they had to be cut. Like, it has to go away. Like, first, as this has to be buried. Like, people have to bury this. Like, they have to destroy these jobs that people are so hell-bent on keeping, because either you keep those jobs and destroy the country, or you destroy those jobs to keep the country healthy. So that's the choice. So it has to be gone. And this cannot happen. This cannot happen where you're like, okay, yeah, let's just keep increasing the cost. No, that cannot happen. Now, what does it showcase? Like that, those things are blunder, but what does it showcase? Well, it showcase they can't control conflicting mission requirements, and that was the primary reason of poor design of space shuttle. Space shuttle was like it's supposed to do everything for everyone. That was a bad system. But again, they should have cancelled it. And you were like, okay, even if let's say NASA mission directorate or head of NASA was like, yeah, we're not gonna do this because it's not viable, and they would have replaced this. Another person would have said the same thing. It's like, or should have said the same thing. It's like, no, we cannot build this. You want everything under the sun. It's not Iron Man. It's not gonna happen. So this showcase, and same went for basically Lunar Gateway. Again, it's the same mistake which they did with Space Shuttle, and nobody learned from it. Same mistake was done with SLS. Nobody learned from that. So idea is that flat out showing that if politicians ask them, they will say, yeah, we can build it. It's like, no, you can't. Like laws of physics forbid you from building it. So they are really bad at that. Another aspect, they can't control the budget of anything. Like, no, like you just know, be it like, GWST or be it this, you can't control the budget. And why they can't control the budget? Well, because it's running on what we call cost plus contracting. Now, be mindful, cost plus contracting exists in army, and basically anytime you are building something that is not known, unknown technology requires that sort of finance structure to make sense. Because again, if you're like, hey, build this me in this sort of price, you might start it, but the moment you start, hey, this technology does not, like let's say you want to build a new generation of stealth technology or sixth gen fighter. Yeah, there is nobody who has the instruction manual and tooling and the parts and the software and everything. So you do not know the price. You will say, hey, flat out, hey, it's like, we cannot give you a baseline price. We have to start and then we can know more. So that's why cost plus contracting is done. But that, again, people did realize that people will exploit it. So there are checks and balances in that design where it's like, okay, that's why you're supposed to do milestone development rather than just say, go YOLO. You're supposed to be milestone. Like you wanted, like, for example, in a fighter jet, it would like, you have to build this cutting edge jet engine first. Because again, even if the project is cancelled, you will have a jet engine that works. So build the jet engine. If they cannot like finish the jet engine in time, or like, it's not nowhere near being finished, then they're like, yeah, let's cancel it. Let's cut our loss. They never did that. So all the control mechanism that is there in this contracting, it was never utilized. So that's why the price of SLS went lol. And here's the ironic part. There's this puppy known as Special Agent, NASA, Criminal Investigation, Office of Inspector General. I like this badge. And yes, it's real, it's not fake. It's actually there is a person who carries this. And again, it's a by government designed for this exact eventuality, is that if somebody starts to burn money, we need someone who understands this. There could not be techno babbled into it. So they need someone who understands that industry and be like, hulululu, no, where is the money? It's like, no, hulululu, no, where is the money? So this person is responsible for that. And they have been screaming on top of their lung for years, including Space Shuttle also, that this is not gonna fly. And again, they have been giving warnings, especially with SLS. SLS is the first time I started to follow them, and he's like, yeah, to give you an idea, like how badly NASA has pooped the bed, they cannot build the freaking launch tower of Mach 2 of SLS. Not even joking, they can't build the launch tower. They literally contracted someone who has never built something like that. Oh, and please Google how much money they burnt. It's awesome. It's gonna be like, whoa. Like you will be angry at people who did not chop off NASA yet. Like launch tower. Don't even talk about rocket. Don't even talk about Boeing. Just look at launch tower, that mobile platform. Just look into that. You will lose all faith in NASA. And again, they have been doing the same thing. They have been screaming on top of their lungs. You cannot keep burning money away. People will be pissed at some point. But there was no legal action taken, no corrective action. They're like, yeah, we're gonna look into it. It's like, and again, they're like, and again, you can say there is politics and all that, but there was a penalty. That somebody has to take credibility of NASA seriously. If they do not, budget cut is the only outcome of it. Because again, yeah, senator can force you, but again, senators cannot build you rocket. And if everybody in NASA agrees, yeah, we cannot build this. You want a magic technology? Find Tony Stark to build this magic technology. We cannot build what you are looking for. Penalty starts to pile up. It's like a radiation damage. One thing does not matter. 2 things, 4 things, 7 things, 15 things. It starts to have penalties. Now, thankfully, there is hope on the horizon. In all this chaos and death and destruction, there is the fact that budget cut is the reason why we have commercial programs. Commercial resupply mission happened because of the fact that Space Shuttle was so bad that they had to be terminated before a replacement could have been even designed properly. So commercial was the only option. And the reason why commercial people can do things in reasonable cost is because of competition. Meaning, as long as you have multiple people, rather than, okay, we are working for one thing, NASA. If you have multiple players, like let's say you have SpaceX, you have Boeing, you have ULA, you have Blue Origin, you have, as long as you have companies working for one player, you have bidding advantage. And because of genuine competition, you will have cost efficiency. And it worked. That's why we have Starship like designs. If NASA was like a space shuttle were kept forced, this would have never happened. So flat out, that's the best thing coming out of this tragedy, so to say. That because of this, NASA will literally had to, like, its hands was forced into commercial system, and they're like, hey, we can launch rockets for this sort of cheap price. We can launch 2 rockets per week, not 2 per year. That happened, past tense. So flat out. And NASA cannot build anything anymore, like flat out, not even observatory, nothing. Like NASA cannot touch hardware anymore. It's like, no, you just have to ask. It's like, hey, I want to put things on moon. Go to public basically companies and ask them. It's like commercial players, so to say. It's like, bro, I need this much payload as the technology payload, and this much is the electrical capacity, basically 2 kilograms and 500 watts of power. Build me a lunar system for that. Other people will come up with a different design, and you go YOLO on that. You will no longer touch hardware. Thou shall not touch hardware. So that's the first thing. You cannot basically build anything because you cannot control cost anymore. And fundamentally, this has been proven. Again, one mission going overboard in terms of cost is acceptable. If most of them are going overboard, but a little bit overboard, nobody cares. If every project is like, yeah, we said 500 million and it's taking $3 billion, yeah, no, there is a point. Even basically weapons projects have been cancelled because of that. Like, there is an upper limit of how much money you can burn, and NASA has proven the fact that they do not know how to do budgeting. So that has to be taken away from them. It's like, no, you ask, what do you want? We're going to figure it out in commercial market. And they have to basically now play the role of administrator. Basically, it's like, I want this, figure that out. I'm not going to put we're going to rent this building, we're going to build this system. No, I want 100 ton in low Earth orbit, the end, go home. That's the only thing they have to do. Administration, role of administration. Basically, a more or less a project manager is like, yeah, I want this thing done, figure it out. And they will not be the role of like OEMs or builders. They're not going to do that. It's like, no, like space shuttle was built by different contractors. That's why those jobs, they were built by contractors, and they were working for NASA. That working for NASA cannot happen anymore. It has to be working for SpaceX. It was working for Blue Origin, working for Boeing, working for whatever have you. Cannot be working for NASA. That working for NASA has to be go away. Again, they can have astronaut, they can deal with that, but they cannot have hardware. Like, no, hardware cannot have that. And they just have to ask the private players and make sure private players do not cheat. That's now their first requirement. Like, they cannot control the contractors, but they have to make sure no private player cheats, which again, I'm scared, because again, I've seen 2 companies cheating. SpaceX cheating because the lunar contract was trolled. It should not have gone to only one company. Again, you need competition. Competition cannot happen with solo player. You have to have dual design. And the woman that gave that contract just took a retirement from NASA and then just got a job in SpaceX. I'm like, that's called conflict of interest. That's like, no. That's no. That's like, no. But again, that's the whole thing of NASA now. We cannot have that conflict of interest. And another player was Boeing somehow convincing that you should put an astronaut, even though every last last launch test did not reach 100 out of 100. So be mindful. People kind of forget that even SpaceX, when they built the Dragon, one of them, it went boom. But again, every investigation was done thoroughly, horrendously. Multiple tests were done. Only then they put astronauts. So that's the whole point. That cheating, basically, NASA now has to be like, I want this. You cannot cheat. The end. They do not have to build anything. If they touch building, they did. We did. NASA did. But they cannot. So basically, let the private players sort it out. Electron rocket could not have happened. Starship could not happen. This would not happen. Think of it this way: like International Space Station was supposed to be national station, but once they realized that USSR was no longer physically existing, they're going poof. They're like, yeah, this sort of budget we can't justify. And again, government budget, so it was like, I assume 10 times overrun. So they're like, yeah, we can't afford it. So we had to make it international. So they went to European Union, and they went to Canada, then they went to Japan, and then they went to this and that. It's like, okay, let's all pool money together. And then there is this axiom. It's like, yeah, bro, I got this. Me good, bro. Me good. I got this. So flat out, NASA has to say, I want an infrared telescope. The end. Or I want infrared telescope with this sort of capture area. Done. They can no longer be like, I want this thing. No, what you want, done. You want drilling machine, we'll figure out. Do we have to use compressed gas for drilling? Do we have to use laser for drilling? We'll figure it out. Basically, private players. And that's why you will have different people trying different things. That's why multiple technology will be developed. And all the money would be spent wisely. And during like 10 years from now, hopefully, if things go as things are looking right now, they will have multiple people who can just like, oh, you want things carried to the moon? Take it and go. Don't bother me. Take it and go. Take it and go. Multiple, not one, at least 3 to 4 systems should be ready and take it and go. 2 of them have actually landed, so we are running on schedule, so to say. Ironic. So that's the hope of it, meaning you remove building kit from NASA, and it's like, okay, you are administration, you take care of the people, you take care of the bureaucracy and all that jazz, you make sure nobody cheats. Done. And ask, don't build, ask. So this was my presentation on this NASA's budget cut. There is a tiny bit chance things would have changed by the time you are watching this video, but hey, things happen. But again, the holistic picture will not change. So hopefully you have liked it, learn from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free. And as always, thanks for watching.